I'm going to hit the go live button. And now we should be live.
All
So
right.
I think maybe it's just like a pre-stream thing that lets you in. But hello, everyone.
How's it going? We multiple go live buttons.
I could probably read it, right? Yeah, but we're up on YouTube here on Sunday for folks listening to the recording later. We usually record Friday afternoons about
Mhm.
3:15, 3:30 Pacific. Had a little bit of a change of schedule this week, so we're here Sunday. There's no football to contend with, at least American football.
I wouldn't know if there was a.
Okay, so the Seattle Seahawks are going to the Super Bowl. So I'm not a huge football fan, but that's the team. So
Okay.
I've been watching, and we're in that weird break now between the Super Bowl and the end of the season. So
Got it.
Super Bowl's next week. So it's I don't know what people do now without football. I'm sure there's basketball or something to watch.
Okay. So, yeah, Super Bowl is next week. So actually, this goes live, but you and I were talking before about a drone company. So they will actually be at the Super Bowl. So
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
No, I have a couple of friends who do advertising stuff, and they're gonna have some stuff in the Super Bowl too. So it's always
Nice.
fun to know the process behind the scenes. And then I try not to watch them. They'll send me shit like, I don't want to see it. I want to see it like live. So it's fun to do that. But yeah, I put the title up for this. There's been a big, I don't even know what to call it. A lot of people are really interested in this thing called Clawdbot, MoltBot. Now it's called OpenClaw. And I thought it'd be good to talk about that. I'm not super interested in like the typical conversation I'm hearing.
If you want to look it up, people are already talking about what they do with it and what it does and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. And I think like for me, maybe just real quick for folks, in case you have no idea what we're talking about. There was a guy who open sourced a way for you to run AI agents autonomously within an environment. So either within like a virtual machine or on an actual computer. And the big difference from this for what most people run in like a chat prompt or a chat window is that you're chatting with it, it's doing stuff, and then it stops. Whereas this whole ecosystem of tools is effectively what this is, allows the agent to do stuff on your computer. It allows it to interact with the internet. It can spool in the background and continue to run tasks. And so it's a lot of tools that like developers will use. Nathan and I use this kind of stuff all the time too, but it's a pretty easy install. I did download it and play with it a little bit.
For someone who's a little technical, it's easy.
I don't know, man. Like I will say the documentation when I tried it, it was called Clawdbot at the time. And then in a few days it's changed names due to legal stuff. But with a little Googling and probably AI, you could figure it out pretty easily. And
that's
the one thing I thought was kind of interesting is like everyone was buying Mac minis for this because reasons. The cool things, I guess, in my mind for this, maybe just to run it down, is it's all contained. So you basically install it and it's done. There's a bunch of tools you can choose from, that some of which he built, some of which are just existing tools. So made it really easy to glue it all together. But he also, instead of the front end being a chat, he developed multiple hooks into different things. So you can like text with your Clawdbot and have it do stuff. You can call it. You can use iMessage, WhatsApp, all these different. So that was really cool to me, that he clearly uses this in ways that like he's not sitting at his computer. And I think that's like a cool revolution in using AI, that it's not just this like app on your phone now, it's like actually has like a computer. So people would install a Mac Mini, presumably to use iMessage and like all the other Apple stuff. You don't need a Mac Mini for this, folks. Like you can run on a VM. You don't run on your like primary computer, please. But do it in a VM cloud. Yeah. If you do run it in a VM or in the cloud, know that it's open to the world. So don't do that or secure it. And in the installer, it says, don't know what you're doing. But
people don't read the instructions.
Oh yeah, and I get it, but it caught the zeitgeist because he made it so easy to install all this stuff that within a few minutes and some Googling, maybe within the space, I'll say, of an hour, pretty much anyone could probably figure it out, which is cool on one side of accessibility and ease. But at the other side, you're giving somebody you're putting somebody in the seat of the plane that has an easy button to get off the runway, but you can't land it because you don't have the skill set to land. And so I think that's probably not clear for folks, is like what you're opening up to the world potentially is dangerous. And The biggest thing I think that continuously people misunderstand this stuff, and then they talk and they have an audience, and then the disinformation for this stuff is bonkers. But none of the prompts are secured in any way. And depending on the model you're running, you can run in the background. There's no sanitization of stuff, and it has the ability to basically self-execute prompts. And anyone who's ever worked with AI in a development setting, you'll have files on your computer in the environment that you don't want it to access, like API keys and stuff. Through troubleshooting, oftentimes it'll be like, hey, it would be way easier if I just took your API key and tried it myself. That's
Yeah.
usually bad because it's not thinking about security. It doesn't understand it. It's really focused. And so there's no safeguards for your information. There's no safeguards for we would normally consider sensitive stuff. And in the right instances, that's okay. But I really want people to know that like you have no guardrails here, and that opens up a realm of exposure that you probably can't comprehend. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying scary, don't use it. I'm saying make sure that you use it in a way, and that if you're giving it access to accounts, that you don't have personal information in there. Anything that you do with OpenClaw, I would say follow the New York Times headline model. Is if you wouldn't want to see it on the front page of the New York Times, don't give it to it unless you really know what you're doing.
Yeah. I was going to make a little comment, but I actually like that. I was going to say it's not as straightforward as there is no protection, right? Because which model you're using, OpenClaw or whatever, they all use a model. It's an architecture, right? So there is protection within, like, say, Gemini's models or Claude's models, prompt injection, stuff like that. So it's not like it's wild, wild west, but at the same time, I think people should take what you said to heart because it's absolutely true.
But it is so that's interesting. It is the Wild West in a sense that today Gemini, Anthropic's, Claude, or the company that shall not be named doesn't really have local access to your stuff and doesn't have the ability. So the sandboxing that prevents you from like building chemical weapons or nuclear weapons or something really crazy, that's still present. But when you're like, hey, book a flight for me from here to Miami.
Right. Yeah.
The companies that are building the safeguard,
they don't do anything right. Yeah.
Exactly. And so people are starting to figure this out. The other point I would make as well is most of these work on API calls. So you have to have an API account. You can get them. It's not a big deal. But if you're running the API without any sort of financial limitations, you can expect to go through a lot of money very quickly. And so another warning for folks trying this out. But yeah, go try it out. Figure out how to get it in a virtual machine and give it a spin, and just don't give it anything you wouldn't want the world to know.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think on that point of like go trying it out, I think it's one of the things that, at least as a developer, I've seen is I personally have not tried this yet. And in like reviewing the documentation, I'm like, okay, this seems super interesting.
Yeah.
But the big primary use case I saw was like people having it do stuff in the back, where there was like a personal assistant kind of thing. It would like answer emails or whatever. Yeah. And these are the kinds of things that both you and I advise not letting an AI do. Don't let it kind of take away your thinking. There are certainly tasks that are probably like low hanging fruit that to an AI agent, but some of the things that people are using Clawdbot for or OpenClaw is to just do stuff. Was my thing with this was like, I don't know what I would use it for. I'm not going to have it read my emails. I'm not going to have it create my schedule for me. I'm not going to have it do all these certain types of things.
That's interesting. So I generally agree with that. Why I don't advise AI for most stuff. It's not good enough to make judgment on my behalf. I am better at making judgments, so don't outsource your judgment to AI has been my new mantra. That being said, if you have it work on stuff and then you, like we talked about, I think in our last cast, where you put yourself in like a managerial like approval.
Yeah.
You don't let the AI contact anyone on your behalf. You don't let it like book the flight on your behalf, but it does all that prep work and gets you to like the point of final decision. That's a different model, and I think there's a lot of use for that. It takes a little bit of getting used to. There's a lot of trial and error, but there's a really big opportunity there. But the judgment piece is scary to me, is I see a lot of people giving way too much trust in this, or I'm going to get rid of my assistant, or I don't need an assistant. And it's, if you pay an assistant to just do stuff for you, or you're probably not getting great value, and it's probably not a good assistant, to be honest. You're paying the assistant for when 6 people want to book your noon lunch slot and to pick the right one, and then
Mhm.
not piss off the other 5. And so, can AI do the messaging? Probably. Should it be? I don't personally think so. I'm not an AI doomer. I'm also not an AI hyper, but there's a there's a really big danger for that. The other thing too is if you're outsourcing your judgment, your email is gonna sound just like everyone else's AI generated email.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's gonna fool some people, but people are really wising up to this. Like communications thing, there's a lot of nonverbal stuff that I think a lot of people who push AI for everything don't quite understand that there's like this EQ that people talk about that like up on these like externalities of the M dash thing was a big debate, right? Where, oh, Andrew
yeah.
doesn't usually use an M dash. And he used it like 12 times now. That's weird. It's too proper. Why does he sound like he's like a
Yeah,
English
yeah,
scholar? Those kind of things are really hard to explain and internalize, but a lot of people, most people pick up on them. And yeah, can it learn it? Sure, but the fundamental fact of OpenClaw is that it's a collection of tools. It's not a new AI revolution. It's enabling AI models to extend into capabilities that are either hard to do or had to be engineered before. So I don't want to take away like what he's built, but at the same time, these are still the same AI models everyone else is running. Eventually, you're going to get the same responses, or you're going to get similar
right. The
enough
same problems,
responses.
right? Yeah,
So that I don't know. Is there anything else? I don't want to. It hits so much hype that I don't want to throw water on it, but I do want. I haven't seen a lot of people talking in depth about the meta of it, of what is it actually doing. It's a collection of tools that make AI easier to interact with other technology. That's great. It's really cool. I played with it. It's really great. Do I actively use it? No, I don't.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there is a meta point, and I believe even the creator of the bot, OpenClaw, mentioned that there's a little bit of an addictive quality to
Yeah.
having an AI do stuff, right? Especially in this day and age where we're so accustomed to equating our values with productivity. You have an AI go do stuff, and it shows you a report or a summary. You get a little bit of a, oh yeah, that was great. I did something today, or something happened today, right? And
Yeah.
as an engineer, I ran into this where we talked where I had a list of projects that I personally had just put aside because I never had the time to do. But once coding with agents got good enough, I went back to that list and just read through all of them using agents to write all the code. So I can see that being something that pulls people into leaning heavily more and more on AI is I need to produce more. I need to do more things. So I'm going to spin up all these agents that do stuff. I feel like once you get to that kind of level of wanting to constantly make sure, admittedly, I do this too. It's with, for instance, Claude and token limits. Like, well, I hit the limit. So let me try and maximize the amount every time I have access to my tokens. I should use them so that
Yeah.
I more effectively utilize what I'm paying for, kind of thing. And I think that kind of leads into a lot of some of the stuff we talked about in the past of this idea of burnout and work-life balance and making sure that you have that set up for yourself such that when you do get access to these tools or you do realize what these tools can do is that you're not trying to just spin agents and do things just for the sake of doing things, right? It goes back to the idea of intentionality, why you want
And
to
it's
do whatever it
judgment.
is that you're doing. Yeah,
Right, because everybody pretends like consciousness or AI or whatever is some infinite resource, and it's not. There's
mm,
actual electrons that have to push.
right.
There's actual costs that you're incurring by doing this, and so it's fun to play around with, I guess, from like a I thought it was fun. Sure, it's a kind of a thing that it's a collection of stuff that I've been aware of that I've used to some extent, but not in the like full picture of what he's done, and I think it's gonna inspire a lot of new stuff, which is great. But at the same time, it's like I only have so much attention too. And I'm never against trying out new tools and playing around with stuff because that's how you get ideas and it helps foster creativity. But it's also the judgment for me is that AI is not capable or should not be trusted to do a certain amount of stuff. This enables it to just do that stuff. Great. Next model that comes out, maybe it's better. Maybe it
Do more
changed my
stuff. Yeah,
opinion. But like
yeah.
the this magic, what's the snake oil salesman problem that's been identified many times, that anything that's claims to be too good to be true is probably too good to be true. And I don't think I've ever seen anything in life that hasn't fit that. I've been surprised and been like, we talked
Yeah.
about it on the podcast, right? I built an app and the app has made money. Like I never
Yes.
that was
Yeah. Sure. Right.
and
Right.
people, well, that's too good to be true. I have receipts and I don't really care. But I'm also not saying you can make $1 million in 2 minutes with the AI model. And like maybe you could, I don't know, probably not. But if you're doing something that makes you money that fast with such little effort, then everyone else is going to crowd into the market. And congrats, you did it first, but you don't have a steady revenue stream, right? That's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that
Absolutely.
the other big feature I would say of this that I thought was really interesting, I didn't get into too deeply, was that it hacks memory.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone who's used AI, context window is something that every model has, and it's basically how much information can the model compute in a given cycle. That's a finite number for all models, and there's really no great way around that other than making the window bigger, and there's different ways of doing that. Different companies have different strategies for doing that. There is a little bit of a just give it more memory, like physical RAM or more
They call it
GPUs.
vertical scaling. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can there's a limit that you hit, of course, for the feasibility of that, but that is some of this challenge. There's all sorts of like context catching and context sanitizations that are running. But what I thought was really cool about this, and this is something I've observed with like anti-gravity, and I'm sure Cloud Code does it too, but there's these kind of what I'll call like almost prompt hacks that as the agent is working, it's spooling down the main idea of what's going on so that when it runs out of context, it can spin up another agent and kind of hand off. So it's not real memory in a sense that it has an understanding and knowledge about what's happened, but it has like a Cliff Notes version that it can then use as a faster retrieval context to then continue on what it was doing or provide less error in what it's doing. And so
Yeah.
that's where the cool efficiency thing for this is it has all these tools, it spawns all these tentacles in your system to do whatever you want. Normally that would just break down because the command doesn't have enough memory to say, oh, I don't know, WhatsApp is down. Now what do I do? I'll try an email. What am I emailing? It's a new conversation. You can think about it in the
Right.
chat window. Oh, there's like a handoff that happens between agents or between different tools chains. And there's some cool work that he's done on that. I'm really bad with names. I'd name him. I'll try to put it in the show notes. But there's and I wouldn't call it hacks. He's done some like actual memory architecture work for
Mhm.
this that you're still limited by the context window, so it's fake memory. But it that is something where I don't think he's getting enough credit for.
Yeah. I mean, I will say back when context windows were small, I feel like we recorded something on this, but we also had mentions of these hacks too,
Yeah.
where it was anytime you were chatting and had a session
Mhm.
that went a little too long, just start a new session. Because what that effectively did was it cleared the context and you sort of start afresh, right? And I think one of the hacks we had mentioned was before one of your conversations filled up, ask the bot you were working with to summarize your conversation, copy that, and dump it into the next. That's effectively what this is, right? And this is the offloading piece. And once you start adding agents that know how to do this effectively, you have one agent that's quote unquote
Yeah.
managing the memory, what the task is and what the next steps are and what you've already tried, so that when you spin up a new agent, you just wipe everything out and then seed it with these new ideas of or this fresh prompt so that you have enough context to work
Yep.
around again. Right. So it's like doing that more effectively and more efficiently, I think is kind of the new innovation. But these are things that we've known about since context was super small. So it is kind of cool to see that grow and
Yeah.
it being its own thing now.
And he made it easy, right? It's a
Yeah.
checkbox
Yeah.
during install. You don't have to spin up a vector database. You don't have to spin up, there's all sorts of cache, hacky memory things you can do. So I thought that was really cool. And it really helps extend the capabilities of this stuff. But again, if you're just outsourcing your judgment and you're going to have all sorts of, and I've already seen people who have had bad stuff happen, their API keys leaked. Why does that matter? I guess for folks who might not know what that is, the API key is like your password to the model. that leaks, then there's other identity protections usually in place, but usually not really. And so that means anyone who leaks that key can then use your model, which means they're using your money.
I was going to say financial is probably the most
And
impactful thing. Yeah.
yeah, and speaking about not so useful things, like there's this MoltBook phenomenon, or I think that's what it's called, that
Yeah, I think it's called
basically like
MoltBook.
Reddit, or it's a Reddit clone, and all of these agents across this install surface that everyone has, their people are letting their agents interact with this website, which is like Reddit. If you don't know what Reddit is, it's a user generated forum effectively of topics that people will have knowledge about or be interested in and then comment, and there's threads, and that's, I hope everyone knows the premise of that, but well, basically the same thing with this, a little different. It's mostly AI generated content. Was
I
actually,
think it's all AI generated content.
I checked it this morning, and you can now sign up as a human.
Ah, I didn't.
Yeah. And I think this was a little profound for me for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's an entire use, or it's
Misuse of resources.
yeah, it's a waste of
Yeah.
fucking energy, flat
Yeah.
out. So it's a waste of resources. It's further underpinning to me how the pursuit of new and novel technology is almost always funneled into entertainment. And like these bots, this product that he's put out there has the capability to do all sorts of shit that most people didn't even think would be capable, that AI would be able to do. And so then we design a system so that they can talk to each other, but that's wrong. They're not talking to each other. The AI bots are synthesizing information and then putting a statistical output to it. There is no consciousness. They're not thinking. They're not having a conversation. They're literally just taking text, reacting to it in any way that you would prompt it to in a prompt, right? They're not alive. They don't have agency. I don't think anyone's necessarily claiming that, but like the Turing test outlined back in the day,
Mhm.
it's really easy to fool people into thinking this stuff is alive or real or has capability it doesn't. And again, I'm not an AI doomer. There's a lot of problems with AI. There's a lot of energy impact. There's a lot of energy impact with just humans being humans. So chill out, folks at home. Like, this is a waste of energy. It'd be like running
Hmm.
your computer in the corner at full speed just because.
Yeah.
See what it
Yeah.
does. Like, who
Yeah.
cares? It's not a lot. Like, nobody who's working on this stuff, nobody who actually like knows what they're talking about is saying the stuff's alive.
Yeah. I mean, I think this the extremes of what happens when, we talk a lot about curiosity. And I think with the innate acceptance of curiosity, there's a little bit of like doubt, right? So there's by nature some uncertainty in it, uh, probabilistically. So when you're saying something like setting up this network for these chatbots or these LLMs to converse with each other,
Yeah.
on one level, we kind of know like they're just predictable outputs, probable outputs, but at the same time, have I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say it's curiosity to know like
Sure.
what does it do when you just kind of let it spin and it's all
Yeah.
probability and you let it go for hours, like what actually happens. I'm sure there are experiments that I want to say, I need to get fact checked on this. I want to say something like MIT or some other university had done this where they do AIs, quote unquote AIs, machine learning based chatbots communicate with each other. And eventually, if you peek into the conversation, it evolves into something that's not human readable. That they just start communicating with own.
Yeah, that's been known for a while too, but even like Anthropic did this not that long ago. All of them have done it with the vending machine experiment. It depends if you just run it forever and give it a task and like how
See what
well
it
it'll
does.
do or
Right.
not. And
Yeah.
TLDR, it doesn't. And like,
Well,
why is that? That's a good question. I don't think quite understand why. I think part of it is like model ability, but also part of it is that there seems to be like a creative element with this where, because the AI lacks creativity and it's just using statistical inference, there's a limit to how far that can actually get you. And I
hmm.
would say it's no different than like monkeys learning how to spearfish, right? That's a thing that's happened. Which I think it's orangutans have observed people spearfishing. They fashioned like a little spear and then have fished with it. Okay, cool, but they didn't invent that. They haven't improved upon it. They haven't put a stone point or a met, or they haven't they've literally, it's mimicry. It's the same thing that like the mirror testing in the 60s with animals and people. One of the things that separates animals and people is that if you put a reflection of yourself in the
Yeah,
mirror,
yeah.
most
It's
people that it's you yourself, not another human. Animals don't for the most. Sometimes they'll figure it out, like
I
if
think
they sniff,
chimps do, else dolphins. I
but
think,
even
yeah,
human
they're
babies
strong.
don't, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyone who's ever covered your eyes in front of a child and they like think that you've
Peekaboo. Yeah, it's a
disappeared, right?
peekaboo. Yeah, it's a peekaboo. Is yeah, yeah.
And so that, what changes with people, we don't really quite know, but we clearly learn how to do stuff. But that's one of the theories. But I also just think that the there's an amazing amount of knowledge in our brain, and it's the access of that knowledge, like the filtering mechanisms we have,
Mm,
it's so remarkable. I don't know that the brain is necessarily remarkable. I'm sure I just offended a bunch of people, like, maybe it is, but, like, for me, it's the filtering. And anyone who, like, doesn't quite understand what I'm saying, like, if you know anybody who has, like, autism or other sorts of sensory disorders, they, like, can't be in public because they can't, their
mm.
brain just takes it all in. Or, like, LSD does this too, where, like, it unfilters all your senses, and then you just get,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
overwhelmed of information. And yes, there's ways we can work with people and give them training to desensitize to that or help their brain filter it. But I don't think people understand how incredible this thing is. And
Yeah, yeah,
a
for sure.
a really good way to test this, if you're not on the autism spectrum, would be go sit in a room with 50 people talking and try to listen to everybody at once
Oh,
and
oh,
make
yeah, yeah.
sense of what they're trying to say. You can't do it, but you can tune in to people within the
One of
room
yeah.
and listen and eavesdropping, right? Like that process is remarkable, and AI has nothing close to that. It's solely focused and tunnel visioned on the one thing, and it's also then filtered through an interpretation of what you asked. So there's the inference that we
Correct.
have
Yeah.
as people. If I say, "Hey Nathan, how you doing?" You're not probably gonna say, "I'm not doing anything." You're gonna infer that that's an informal greeting to talk about your day or something. And so
Yeah.
that we're so early days with this stuff, it just doesn't do it. And so that's why I think these, I guess, experiments are really stupid, and it just there's so many better uses for the technology and so many better ways to explore that these become distracting kind of novelty things. And to your point, I
Mm.
don't wanna discourage people from trying stuff, but this is a great example of doing the wrong thing. You're trying the wrong thing, right? And
I mean, go ahead, keep going.
well, I'd say you would know that you're trying the wrong thing if you had knowledge about the thing. And this is when an artist starts, a lot of art students, well, they think they need the best paint and the best brush, and the best advice I've ever gotten or heard from somebody on how to get started is buy the cheapest thing you
Mhm.
can in whatever. If it's the cheapest paintbrush, it's the cheapest chisel, like cheapest paper, cheapest computer. I want to learn how to code. Get the cheapest thing you possibly can. Figure out how to do the thing you're doing. And then if something breaks or if you run out of paint, then get a more expensive one that you can afford. Once you've had the time to learn how to use the thing, then you invest in a better thing if you need to. And some artists will
Mm.
tell you they just use cheap paint. Like I have a buddy who like only uses recycled materials and his art's fucking amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it goes back to some of the things we talked about, having limitations being arbiters of creativity, right? Like when you're
Exactly.
limited by the basic tooling, you do what you can to learn the fundamentals. So while that limited by the tools, right? You know the basics or the foundation of the thing that you're
And
trying to
that's the
learn.
same thing with AI. Like you can try for free almost all these
Mm.
products, right? And we talk about AI coding, and it's hard to do that in a prompt, but you can. And when you run out of credits for the day, then try to figure out how do I get more information extracted out of the AI in the limitation of free credits I get. Or
Mm.
maybe you go pay, right? But that's how you start to learn. It's the same way with coding, right? It's like I have so much memory, I can't run all the things. How do I run the things in such a way that doesn't crash the program or doesn't and with AI, I worry a little bit about that process because it's too easy to just get the answer. It's too easy to push it, but you can still be an exercise creativity. And maybe I'll do this and I'll put it in the show notes. But I want to ask AI, if I created a AI Reddit for AI agents, what could I possibly learn? And it'll probably be like nothing because you're going to get inference poisting or something. I don't know. Or it'll be like, wow, Andrew, that's the greatest idea that has ever been
Probably,
thought
probably
about
along
by
those
this
lines.
human.
Probably along those lines. Sure, to give me the invite when you do it.
So
Yeah,
yeah, go try it in a safe way. But yeah, the tasking your computer to do stuff that doesn't have a direct like output or outcome is a waste of it's like idling your
spinning
vehicle in the
wheels.
driveway, right? Like
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
happen? It's gonna get too hot and overheat, or it's gonna run out of gas, probably. Maybe it runs forever magically. I don't know, but are you gonna learn anything? I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah, yeah. I briefly mentioned it before, but a lot of these discussions around when AIs or agents know when the task is complete, very reminiscent of a computer science halting problem. Like there's
Yeah.
no way for a program to know when it should terminate in its own world, right? You can tell it out, but something's operating within those rule sets. There's no way for it to know when to stop. And
Yeah.
I think this is very much along those lines when you give an agent the task. I mean, right now they run out of resource and they stop, right? But theoretically, if you let them spin forever, they probably will try and spin forever.
Yeah.
So
Eh,
it's around that for sure.
and I think it's still early enough days where it hasn't gotten completely unhinged yet, but it will. It's so
Not fully
funny.
unhinged.
Yeah, it's so funny to me because it's like the conversation in loose quotes, I don't think they're actually conversing. I don't think they're alive. I don't think they're capable of understanding what it is. They're talking about how, oh, people can eavesdrop on us and we need security. But these are all ideas that we already know. New has come out of this, other than maybe some entertainment from the AI talking about weird, makes weird shit up. People do that too, right? It's not,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I
anyway,
mean, if I can throw out maybe it's a thought
do it.
experiment, but
Do it.
something that like, so I'm going to take into like physics. So for people who are after physics or a soft spot for physics, there's this idea of Boltzmann brains where entropy increases given enough time. Eventually, there'll be a point in which a brain just magically, not magically, all the atoms come together to form a brain, and that's what this idea of the Boltzmann brain is. And, use AI to learn more about it. But maybe something that more people have heard of is if you give enough monkeys typewriters, given enough time, they'll eventually recreate the works of Shakespeare. Right? This idea, and part of me feels like maybe this MoltBook thing is that kind of experiment realized. You give enough AIs which are running off this probability that maybe by chance one of them comes up with some sort of cure for cancer or something crazy like that, right? At what
Yeah,
cost? Sure, that it's got to run, but I don't know. Maybe that's what people are looking for.
I don't think so. To your point, it's statistical probability of creation, which okay, maybe, but I just they're limited in the source material of what they have to infer on new things. Could they rediscover Shakespeare? Sure. I'm sure it's in the training data somewhere. I'm sure given enough rabbit holes of English language serfdom, sure. But are they gonna come up with a cure for cancer? I doubt it, unless we've missed something drastic, because
Mm,
they don't have the ability to create, they don't have the ability to synthesize information outside of what the model has. Like, the fundamental infrastructure of these things has the ability to infer, right? The whole inference idea is how these things work. But there's something with changing that inference back into, like, communication, like the output, I've seen 0 evidence that these things can create novel anythings, and that's a pretty broad statement, but I think people are also very underestimating the extent of their own knowledge. Because like, I do this stuff all
sure.
the time where I'll put something in, I'll be like, "Wow, that's amazing," because the limit of my knowledge has just been surpassed, and then I'll go
Mm,
talk to somebody who's an expert, and they'll be like, "That's actually cool, and it's right, but, right, here's a bunch of other stuff
yeah,
now
yeah.
that it didn't come up with or it didn't understand, or it's weird that it's in this context and not this context, or what about this kind," and it's the depth of knowledge problem. And so I think, like, we're gonna see I think this will expose a lot of people to things that they probably haven't been exposed to, which maybe that's the benefit. I think there's better ways to do that. But it's
Sure, sure.
also
Yeah, yeah.
and maybe one of the why I reject this so much too, because it's not creative. It's you're passively experiencing a phenomenon, and I don't see people asking like, why did they make this determination? Or it's like that, it's the spectator versus like the player idea. You know what I'm
Interesting.
talking about? And so it's like if
Yeah.
everyone is so interested in the sporting event that they are so interested in watching and participating passively that nobody ever tries to learn the sport dies. That's anything in life, right? If you don't have the next generation take over. And it's I'm a little bit afraid that we're such an entertainment-driven society with social media and all this other entertainment stuff that we're gonna miss the boat on how incredible this technology actually is because we're gonna have AI wrestling bots or something, right? It's just gonna be limited to human entertainment.
I mean, you could say that there's got to be some entertainment for anything that anyone wants to pursue, or else they wouldn't pursue it. Right? There's some value in there, and it's not just financial. It's not just interest. It's something else that, like I find certain things fun, which is why I do them. Right. So, I don't disagree that yes, having a MoltBook with a bunch of bots just kind of spinning their wheels or back and forth. There's probably better ways to use the resources there, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I mean, it's novel. I don't. I guess I don't know. It's well,
Novel in the sense that it's probably the first large scale Reddit-like tent-driven
right.
platform for whatever you wanna call it. Cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think this. I don't know if I'm speaking for myself, but maybe you find a little bit of this as well. Like for someone who works in like innovation, I accept that there are definitely things that one does, and it ends up being a huge waste of resources.
Mhm.
Right? Like there are some things where you just know that it's not going, like moonshots and stuff like this, where you kind of take risks.
Yeah,
This probably isn't like a more calculated risk, like setting up
yeah,
a
yeah.
book, and but for a lot of my projects that I've done, I've sunk a lot of time and resources into, and yes, I could have used that better, but I don't know that until after it's passed.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I would call this a throw it out the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I
Right.
like that. I like that.
Whereas if
Yeah.
you're gonna successfully do innovation, you need to have some sort of a hypothesis and
Yeah.
follow some sort of a method to
Some aim.
understand. Because what is the success of this? What are you hypothesizing? And we've talked about this a lot, but maybe just to revisit with folks, like, it's okay to have I'll just make some shit up for this since we're gonna make Reddit for AI agents, and we're gonna call it MoltBook. That's what we've been talking about. And my hypothesis is that the agents will identify a cure for cancer. Okay. And so then you're going to do it and you're going to watch it happen. And then if cancer gets cured, I guess, then we know that we succeeded. That would be the way to do it. As far as I know, there isn't anything there in terms of hypothesis, but that's not to be confused with, okay, my hypothesis is that it cures cancer. It didn't cure cancer, but we learned a bunch of other shit about something else or something we didn't foresee. And what I want to be clear on with folks is I think this is just a waste of time and energy and resources completely. I
Mm.
don't see any benefit to running this because probably I understand this stuff too well. And I'm just like, you're just refeeding shit back and forth.
Yeah.
But that is not to say that anything that you're thinking about doing, and just because you don't necessarily know what the outcome might be, means it's wrong. I want to be clear with folks. Like, but if you are going to do something, you still need to go through the work to try to think through what do you expect to happen? How do you know that MoltBook was successful? A billion views? Okay, cool. That's a goal. The goal is to get fame and notoriety for myself because I
Sure.
invented this thing. I don't agree with that goal either, but like that, at least then I would say, sure, this is an interesting social experiment, I guess, in how much will people feed this thing for free? I don't know. Just because I think it's dumb doesn't mean it's dumb, but it's this
Yeah.
one's
Yeah.
dumb.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
People end it there. This one's dumb.
It was like a stamp. Dumb.
Dumb. Yeah, we'll get Claude open bot molt thing to do it. All right.
Yeah.
Happy Sunday if you've made it this far. We usually do these things on Friday afternoons, 3:30-ish Pacific.
Right. Yeah. I think this Friday we'll be back on track.
I think so. Oh, early actually.
That's right. Actually, you said that
We're
earlier.
starting, I think, at 3 Pacific on this Friday.
Yeah. Whenever.
Yeah, there's a
sounds
plan
good.
here, right? I'm playing at my calendar because if it's not in my
Yeah.
calendar, it
That's
doesn't.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, so we're starting 2:30,
2:30.
2:30, 3 o'clock Pacific. I have a hard stop,
You can find us
but
at
we'll get at least a half
38.com.
hour
It's like the
conversation
word
in, so
create
join us.
Yeah.
instead
Cool.
of the C.
All right.
All right, take care all.
As always, we encourage you to listen, watch, do. We'll see you next time. You can support this podcast at patreon.com/38 or at ko-fi.com/38. Thanks for listening.